Hi, good evening. Tonight is Monday, March 3rd, 2025, and I would like to call the Groton Board of Education curriculum meeting to order. In attendance, I have Dr. Andrea Ackerman, myself, Adrian Johnson, Matt Brown, Amy McKenna, and I'm sorry,
Jamal Davis.
Jamal Davis. I'm sorry, I don't from bad names. Carmita Hodge and Anne Marie Mancini. The first order of business is to review the January 16th meeting minutes. It says 2024, so I think we need to change that to 2025. All right, we'll change that to 2025 meeting minutes. All right. Oh, we will wait 1 minute because yeah, oh no, it just says it in the agenda 2024, but hey, Mike, we just started. So we're just going to vote on the meeting minutes. So for January 16th. So do you have any comment on the meeting minutes?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, we'll call it the meeting minutes passed. All right, now the next item on the agenda is oh yeah, we started later anyway. That's all right. Discussion of the English language arts curriculum in writing, the writing portion of it for grade 6 through 12. So I don't know, do you guys have an idea of where you want to start? What's that?
So we're going to start at the middle school level and work our way through the grades, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Okay. And so I'm sharing my screen. This is a presentation that was prepared by team members at both the middle and the high school. And we have representatives here from both schools. And I think we are going to begin with Mr. Davis, who's the assistant principal at Groton Middle School. So I just want, before we begin, I always feel like this is a good opportunity to remind everybody a little bit about what our mission is in Groton, and that is teaching and learning. And certainly this particular presentation is in alignment with that mission. I can't imagine anything that's not when we're talking about a school district. And then also some of our goals, which are, provide a rigorous and relevant curriculum, ensuring that our instruction is effective and engaging our students, and then fostering excellent learning environments. That said, I'm going to transition to transition to Mr. Davis, who's going to talk about the writing program at Groton Middle School.
Thank you. So, as you know, GMS is grade 6, 7, and 8. The curriculum that guides the instruction was adopted about around 2018, 2019, under the goal of providing a dynamic, rigorous curriculum, which was going to be aligned to Common Core standards in Teachers College. So it was a workshop model that was adopted for the middle school, focusing on the major writing units that you see there: personal narrative, literary analysis, and literary essay. Under that model, it did align with Common Core standards in terms of skills of figurative or sensory language and dialogue and grammar. So grammar was integrated within the writing. It still is today. The literary analysis, as you can see, was based on the reading. So the teachers would use certain texts to analyze the craft of the author, and then use that to help students develop their own writing. And those could be looking at the character in terms of deep study of the character. In terms of the literary essay, what we saw there, or what we continue to see there, is elements incorporated into the unit. Again, looking at the craft of the author. We utilize mentor text in all 3 grades. So this is the mentor text that we're currently using in grade 6. In terms of those skills, so typically when we look at writing. We're looking at writing in terms of, the process. So the process, brainstorming, editing, that is still going on. So we're definitely trying to, teach those students that process of writing, but also in terms of the structure, we're looking at teaching and making sure that they understand how an introductory paragraph is supported by a body, supported by inclusion. So they are working on that as well. And different types of genre of writing in terms of narrative, expository, persuasive, descriptive, which is all again aligned to the Common Core. And then that grammar or punctuation or mechanics or conventions or integrated within. This is uniform and followed in grade 7. So if you want to go to the second slide, please. Where now you see a little bit more focus on argumentative or persuasive writing. 7th grade uses the CER, which is claim, evidence, and reasoning, to support students' writing in terms of making sure, and this aligns with the SBAC. At one point, SBAC did have a performance task, and some states still use a performance task, but within Connecticut, it's integrated into the CAT, which is the ELA computer adaptive component of the test. And so those brief rights, which students are exposed through the IABs, the interim assessment blocks, they're introduced to understanding how to maybe first write an introduction of your persuasive essay, or focus on making sure that the body has, strong arguments within it. So that is integrated within it. As you can see, literary essay is again continued like it was in the 6th grade into the 2nd grade. So they're building on that, again, utilizing a mentor text, in this case, a long walk to water, and then realistic fiction. So trying to get the students to be creative in their writing. Again, building on that figurative language that was in the 6th grade. So you have that alignment. And as I mentioned already, with terms of the claim, evidence, and reason is there as well as a focal point in terms of the grammar skills. We'll go to the next slide, grade 8. So in grade 8, obviously the focus in grade 8 is obviously preparing the students to transition to the high school. There were some matriculation meetings that did happen, and where there was conversation in terms of what do our 9th graders need when they come in. And so part of that teacher college and evolving and developing the memoir writing was a big piece of that. So again, those personal narratives, going back, kind of connecting to the 6th grade, but expanding on that. So really focus on the literary devices, which are taught through, again, that mentor text, so they can kind of see how the authors that they could be studying, in this case, the Red Kayak, does it, and then try to integrate that into their own writing. And then, as you can see down the next where with the contemporary classic books, they're looking at that, understanding point of view in their writing, and being able to have that in discussion, as well as writing that out themselves, and then really focusing on that grammar and punctuation, but in an integrated approach, not direct instruction on that. However, there is opportunity for that in the curriculum, and there are specific lessons. If you look at the online curriculum, you can see some specific lessons that speak to grammar that they can integrate if they feel the need to do that. And then, writing response to reading in all units. That's something that we really see a lot in the 8th grade. So that's kind of across disciplines to improve their writing, but they're building on that CRE that happened in 7th grade and making sure they incorporate that into the 8th grade. So again, just want to emphasize in terms of the alignment with the SBAC, because how the SBAC is structured now with these brief rights, give you an idea is that students could be asked on the SBAC to write an intro or write a conclusion. They're not asked to write a whole, like they used to do with the CAT back, about 20 years ago, or the mastery test. They're not being asked to do that any longer. They only have to do a certain part. So depending on what they're asked to do on a particular test can vary from intro, conclusion, elaboration, organization as well. So it's a little bit different. So that's trying to make sure we integrate that into our lessons is critical. And they've been working on that because now we've been taking some item sets through our interims and providing that directly to the students so they get familiar with that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would you like to ask questions of Mr. Davis now, or would you prefer to wait till the end of the presentation? Or,
I'd like to ask
sure.
about exactly what does it mean that the grammar is taught, is integrated in the lesson? What does that mean?
So the approach is based on the work that they're analyzing. So they're doing informative assessing the students. And they see, for example, let's say students are struggling with and so now they're going to look at the different ways they should be utilizing that so that it can be integrated into that. So the teachers will take that opportunity based on observing what they're doing and realize that's an area of focus, and they would teach them that specific focus of grammar.
Hmm.
So there's no grammar specific at this point, no grammar specific design lesson that they would be going through. So it's integrated through what they're observing in the class.
That's what I took it to mean. And how successful do the teachers think that is?
It varies, some students are coming in with solid grammar skills and some are not. And so they're using the opportunity to provide explicit instruction when they identify that students are struggling in that area.
So how does that prepare them for the high school?
How does it prepare for the high school? Well, it's based on the skill development. So if they are showing that they need more assistance in that grammar, they are focusing on that. If they're not, then they're focusing on other areas of weakness that they need to develop and mastery.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Thank you for your presentation. I was delighted to see A Long Walk to Water is still in there. Both my kids found that very powerful, and actually still talk about it years later. I had a question, actually, in some way related. I was wondering if expanding vocabulary is included in the writing, is linked into writing at all in those grades as well.
Yeah, so as we talk about the mentor text, it's a great opportunity for dialogue centered around word choice and vocabulary usage. So the teachers do spend quality time in that area. I know particularly in the 8th grade, one of our teachers has spent a great deal of time on looking at vocabulary and expanding students' vocabulary and specifically providing direct instruction around vocabulary.
Yeah.
So that is happening. Matter of fact, with the recent reviews of the IEBs, which are again, making sure, so those are interim assessment blocks, which are basically kind of like a formative assessment that aligns to the SBAC, and SBAC is obviously aligned to the standards. So students are now, for example, in 7th grade, are looking at specific vocabulary that is very heavy and using that not only in their writing, but in their analysis of their reading as well.
Great, thank you. My other question, so I saw grade 6, where's a personal narrative, and then grade 8 here we've got was memoirs.
Yes.
And in grade 7, I see the argumentative writing is very, very important. But I was wondering, I mean, every year students change so much. Is there a space for smaller assignments on personal narrative? Because it seems like their viewpoint would change so much
Yeah.
with every year.
The teachers do have some flexibility.
Yeah.
To adapt based on their student population. However, it is important to emphasize that if you go through each grade level, if you wouldn't mind going back to grade 6, again, aligning to the Common Core. So narrative writing is one of the
Mhm.
key components within the Common Core, and it's going to be assessed at the end of the year. So the students are exposed to
Got it.
that. But doesn't mean that they're not exposed to the other one, but the focus for grade 6 is on that. And then when they developed this, they went to, if you wouldn't mind going to grade 7, the argumentative or persuasive writing being the focus there that they want to go, but they would still do some small writing assignments that might be more narrative in approach. So they're not completely abandoning it, but
Mhm.
they're introducing a new form of writing or genre of writing
Right.
each year.
Kind of progressively building that
Yeah.
Common Core. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar somewhat with the teachers college model. I think it came to the school system around like maybe 2015 or 16. As I remember, it was, a DoD grant. Do you know how many school systems in Connecticut are you familiar that use the teachers college model?
I couldn't answer.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and um, I know we're changing in reading to something different. Is there thoughts to continuing the teachers college model in years to come, or because it's basically been about 10 years? So I was wondering, what do you envision, if possible, might be coming next, or is it the same thing?
We're going to be exploring that really soon. I haven't had the opportunity yet to, I've started working with it. Let's just say I started working with the middle school team. As you know, you ask a very valid question concerning, considering that a number of school districts in Connecticut have made the transition away from teachers college, specifically in reading because of the new research around the science of reading. So that will be something that we're exploring really soon. I've met recently with the middle school English language arts team. We have implemented, or we're working on a pilot for basically their tier 2 and tier 3 systems, kind of helping them to firm up that MTSS process for students in literacy around reading. We haven't touched the writing yet, but I really feel like in my conversations with teachers, they see the need to possibly make some adjustments, and we'll be working on that next year.
Oh, thank you. And certainly, of course, the reading had to be the priority with the changes. And so do you know if there's an active still relationship, in terms of teacher development with the Columbia Teachers College or not at this point? Because I think that grant was like for 5 or 6 years or
Can you
so.
clarify what you mean in terms of active teacher development?
I just remember early on, it was, I would assume people were coming from Teachers College here and maybe some attending workshops there. And that was all at the time grant funded, and that's the way to learn a model. I was wondering if that level of interaction still happens.
I have not seen
Yeah.
any requests come across my desk to attend Teachers College. You're right. There was a time period where the Columbia Teachers College would a couple times a year, but I believe twice a year, have big conferences, invite member districts to down to New York for teachers to participate. Some school systems would load up buses of teachers and bring them down to New York. I'm sure Groton was one of those districts.
I went there on a bus.
On a bus, yeah.
Oof.
And so that is no longer happening. There's been a little bit of a shift in Columbia's Teachers College in terms of the Lucy
Leadership.
Hawkins, the leadership. And
I
There-
heard her talk once.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this on the air. However, I turned to the woman that was next to me, Lucy Hawkins was talking, and I turned to the woman who was sitting next to me and I said, "Is she drunk?" I mean, that's how bad it was. So,
Wow. It's interesting. When was that, recently or not?
yeah, that was at least 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Very
there's been
bad.
a shift, as Dr. Ackerman indicates or is alluding
I
to.
never hold back.
And
Good.
so we have not had, that I'm aware of, we have not had anyone participate recently, unless you have any information I don't have.
No, I think it's important just to provide a frame of reference that some of us may not have, to your point. During, like I said, about 10 years ago, obviously we had a strategic plan in place. And one of the goals of the strategic plan was to provide a dynamic and rigorous curriculum. And so those involved in the development of the strategic plan felt that Columbus Teacher College provided a framework that aligned with the Common Core standards, right? And so, reading obviously, but as well as writing. Now, they argued at that time there was evidence to support that if districts adopted the workshop model, then students would demonstrate a mastery in alignment to those standards that are listed in the Common Core, right? And so Teachers College at that time really became, as I mentioned, the framework for instruction within the classroom. And that integration model that you was asking with regards to grammar was part of what was adopted at that time.
And I have to say that I know that that this is and it's been this way for a long time, for the idea of integration. But I'll tell you that in my own experience as teaching, I know that that is not the ideal way to go. And grammar is the science of the language, and the entire language is built on it. And it really does guide thinking. So I'm not happy with integrating grammar, and I think it should be taught dynamically in a separate unit. And that unit should be the first semester of the 8th grade. That's where it should, in my view, that should be where it's just delved into. And then after that, applied to writing, and applied to writing in a composition semester, and then applied to writing in a literary semester before you get to maybe a research paper.
Yeah.
But that's my experience.
And with that being said, is, the teachers at this point are looking at the, written curriculum, which is, listed that they are following, based on the work that was done. And that plays into your point, the review process needs to happen, and then revision, to your point, needs to be considered. And then, as I mentioned, you have the written curriculum, and then you have the taught curriculum, what is being taught within the classroom based on that. And still, it's heavily based with or guidance or frameworks of Teachers College at this point.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got just a little bit. So going back to that, are there any other programs that we're using for reading in middle school besides the Teachers College?
Yes, and I think it would probably be best described as, supplemental material that is integrated through our MTS, a multi-tier system of support. So some students who have been identified are lagging certain skills, they're utilizing, for example, Lexia Power Up as an alternative or as a way to accelerate their learning, I should say. That is the case. How we're structured at the middle school is that we are very fortunate that within our instructional schedule, we do have an opportunity for tiered intervention. And so for tier 2 intervention, which is more targeted intervention, that is being done directly by the teachers. And so they are supplementing it with, for example, Lecture Power Up, but they're also reteaching and doing things that are aligned within the classroom. To your point, if for a student we felt needed more support within grammar, that is being done for those students in that small group setting. And when I say a small group, you're looking at 8 to 10 students. And then we have what we call more of an intensive tier 3, where we have reading specialists. Now, the reading specialists are developing individualized instructional plans based on the students that they have. So it's more a diagnostic approach, really what the students, if they need grammar, if they need support in terms of word choice, they're doing that. But it's more centered on reading than it is more writing for them.
All right. So I guess just going for the, so I don't really know much about the teachers college in middle school, but I know in and later on in elementary school, I think it's a lot of volume of writing, but I think that studies show that the volume isn't really as important in actually learning to write well. Is it kind of that same type of model in middle school, or is it changed by?
I would say it's more.
May I?
Yeah.
Sure. I would say that there's a much larger focus on revision and quality of writing at GMS.
That's
Like
what-
Sorry,
revision,
say that again.
a
Revision.
larger focus on revision and quality of writing, not necessarily volume. Students are working on their writing projects in multiple drafts. Students are conferencing with each other. Students are conferencing with their teachers. They are spending time sort of like, I would say, honing in on some of those grammatical questions that they may need more practice in, and also questions of mechanics that they may need more practice in. And they're leveraging those multiple draft assignments in order to gain more understanding and to write more clearly. So I wouldn't say that I know exactly what you're referring to, where they are just writing throughout the year, like in a sort of a mad way, but never going back to look back at the quality of what they're creating. I would say that the GMS model is much more concerned with the quality of what they're creating and going back to review drafts and perfect drafts, or at least go back and rework drafts a second and sometimes a third time, depending on how much time they have. Definitely. That's the practice that's going on in the room for sure.
And I would also add to that, not only is we're talking about revision, but revision may be, more focus driven. So it may be revision in a particular area, to that point of, let's look at the vocabulary. Somebody asked that before, that you're selecting. How can you improve your writing by changing some of the word choices that you've picked? So that is happening. And that's happening where they are looking at, again, different texts, or looking at other writing or exemplars, and then trying to incorporate what they have learned through their analysis into their own writing, to your point.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And my last question is kind of how, and this will be, I guess, Miss McKenna, Mrs. Hodge. You guys used to teach this. I don't know if either of you taught ninth grade, but I'm sure that every teacher has had students where they feel like the teacher before them maybe didn't do enough or something like that, right? At least that's what I hear at home. But are there things where you see in like the 9th and 10th grade classes where you see that they're missing something? Are there examples of places where they're missing something, and then we go back and try to correct that in the middle school curriculum or earlier on curriculums, or just the way instruction is delivered for that? You know where I'm going? I know I'm kind of
Not sure I
rambling
know
on
where you're-
this.
So I'm thinking about I taught and teach social studies. So to me, yeah, I'm not.
I'm sorry, I thought
That's
you
okay.
taught.
That's okay. But again, we talked about the curriculum coordinators at the
Yeah.
time, where we were able to, to align, or as much best we can, align the 6th through 12th grade skill sets. So when we were curriculum coordinators, I was able to meet with 8th grade teachers to make sure that the incoming 9th graders were prepared, maybe to write a DBQ, to develop thesis statements, to study documents and how to respond to documents. So I'm going to always, Mr. Johnson, defer to the curriculum coordinator role, I think was very valuable.
All right, so the general way it would work is the staff or the unit leaders would communicate to the curriculum coordinators that we feel the students need
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit more work here, and the curriculum coordinators would then go down to
Yeah.
the middle school and try to make adjustments as necessary. That would be the,
Mhm.
Yeah, if, just to envision, that vertical alignment that we're really talking about was critically part of the role of the coordinators. And so, just having certain conversations, dialogue, because part of the process was that those, curriculum, coordinators were able to push into class and observe teachers from 6 to 12 instruction. So you're talking about alignment in terms of, okay, approach to instruction, in terms of, as you had asked earlier, how does an eighth grade, are they prepared for the ninth grade? Those conversations were happening. And dialogue was happening when we would have opportunity for articulation meetings where all those teachers are coming together and having discussion about, what is happening at your particular level and how's that going to impact my level. So that was happening.
And the administrators, because Keith and I were partners with world language and social studies, so we were always communicating about meeting times, next steps, what we need to do to
Yeah.
make sure, even evaluations. Keith and I
Alright.
were always in contact.
so so I know we, last year, positions were unfortunately lost. Was curriculum coordinators one of them? Did we lose some curriculum coordinators?
Lost some, yes.
Yeah, my belief is there's only one left, and I think it's for math.
Right.
It's math and it's part-time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is that a big need? I mean, was there a lot of value?
I have not, I was not here under that model, but I can tell you that I've worked under that model before. That is, those positions are a necessity I think what they're really talking about is coherence
Mhm.
and communication.
Yes.
And so certainly we have teachers that work in the same department, but they're in two different buildings. And I know that we think of the middle school campus and the high school campus, or the two facilities, as one large campus. And logistically, that's just doesn't wind up what's happening. And so to have an individual who not only runs the meetings, sees every teacher, is able to coordinate curriculum, programming, the selection of resources, the assessment and monitoring of students, those roles are absolutely critical. And then just the articulation from having a person that is in those buildings regularly, that works also then with the people here in central office. I can't tell you how important that is. I know for me in my role right now, I'm overseeing all subject areas and have no direct, with the exception of the person that you mentioned in math, very little direct then contact with. It's just so far removed. Like I can tell you, I'm working pretty regularly with people like Matt, Jamal, Carmita, all these people here at the table, but there's still another layer then to get down to that teacher and student level. So I can be in the schools every day and still just not have that impact, especially when you're overseeing, a person like myself is overseeing all content areas. I think you asked a really legitimate question, or somebody did at the very beginning of the presentation, in terms of, knowing that we've moved away from teachers college at the elementary school, I think, there's a kind of question about, well, why haven't we done that yet at the middle school level? Simply can't do all of those things at once without having a coordinator kind of leading the charge on that. Because right now, like we had to focus on K-5. If I had a coordinator, I could do that work, a little bit. We can be more attentive to that work in a quicker way.
So how have we, now that so it was last year was the first year without the curriculum coordinators. How has it been tough to make up for that by trying to bridge those, those gaps between schools and grade levels without them? I've heard of you guys worked out.
I do think
ways to
it's been
do that.
tough. I think one advantage we've had right now is having these two be assistant principals, at least they have that background knowledge of knowing so like, I think for the short term, we're okay. You're not great, but we're better off knowing that they're still part of our district and really know what their work was ahead of time, like even your vertical teamwork that you were doing for professional development, having the ideas of what we need to work on, we still have that present. But I think the more years we go away from that model, the harder and harder it's gonna get, because their jobs are extremely difficult in the day-to-day management and, I think the portion of having those type of roles is that's more of the instructional leadership where, you're not getting pulled away for all the day-to-day events that happen in the school. And you could focus on just the instruction.
So we used to have like 6 of them or something, right? 6.
Three.
3.
Just three and then,
And one special ed
Yeah.
coordinator.
All right, so 4.
and also the special ed coordinator helped alleviate
Right.
us and our PPT, so that again is pulling us away from opportunities to get in and coach and do
Yeah,
instructional work.
to Matt's point, I think it's important to emphasize and articulate that as administrators within a building, there are a lot of different hats that you are expected to wear. And obviously, one of those main hats is an instructional leader. But that sometimes it's impacted by dealing with other things. For example, maybe discipline, could be just management of the building that you would have to be called to address in the immediate moment. With a curriculum coordinator, what you are prioritizing is the instructional leadership component. And so the coordinators to that point, and for the teachers, they were able to provide meaningful feedback in terms of where they were and where they wanted to go in terms of their goals. So that communication was critical in terms of improving instructional practices because they were there for them. Instead of trying to find the assistant principal, because the assistant principal or the principal is doing something at that point, they knew they had someone that they could ask specifically about instruction or get feedback about their instruction. So it was very critical in terms of, I think, moving us. And to the point that Amita mentioned, it was an opportunity where for me and Amy, we were able to have really deep dialogue in terms of where we felt we were able to go. And now, in my role, I'm still doing a lot of that instructional leadership. But at this point, I'm centering more of my energy is with trying to get the structures and systems in math in place. And a lot of that has to do with that we have a math curriculum coordinator still there that I can work and get that established and then move to transition to meet the needs of the language arts, because that was prior to was probably in a more stable place. But to your point, as we move away from that, right now, where are we going to be in language? So right now, there's been a lot of conversation, and Anne Marie has been, great in helping start to build that for the language arts or maintain the momentum that we had with Amy. But yes, I think to Matt's point is the emphasizing the role of the instructional leader and how pivotal that was being fulfilled through our coordinators.
Well, unfortunately, we just voted on the budget. Another curriculum coordinator. I'm sure Anne Marie's doing everything she can to fill in the gaps where possible. And so is it typical for other districts our size to have a few curriculum coordinators?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want to transition now to the high school writing program? And I'm going to ask Ms. McKenna to lead this work.
Sure. Is it okay if I kind of, like flip around? Because one of the things that I wanted to do was take parts of this conversation and sort of trace an idea that brings you from the middle school to the high school. So you already referenced all the slides anyway, right? You already read through most of it. I wanted to begin with what Mr. Davis was saying about claim evidence reasoning. Okay, so that's the CER method that he made reference to in grade 7 and 8. And claim evidence reasoning, that is something that is foundational, obviously both for the SBAC, but it's also in the Common Core. And one of the questions that you might have in terms of the curriculum coordinator role and just instructional leadership role in general is, so what happens to claim evidence reasoning when we get to the high school? Like, don't we all wonder? So claim evidence reasoning is the foundation for the 9th grade academic paragraph. And if you don't mind, you can flip to the academic paragraph work. Probably, yeah, here we go. Excellent. Thank you. And you'll see the words claim, context, transition, evidence, reasoning. This particular paragraph is really the instructional focus for 9th grade writing in English language arts. And what the teachers will do is they'll use formatives at the beginning of the year for writing instruction, see where students are coming in at from grade 8 in terms of their own knowledge of claim evidence reasoning. And I know there are some 8th grade teachers that use, they call it ICE twice, for them to use that claim evidence reasoning like twice throughout like one single paragraph, so their paragraphs have more depth. And the 9th grade team will take the academic paragraph, as we call it in high school, and really make sure that they are focusing on clear and accurate sentencing, strong use of select evidence, and developing what we call thought work in that reasoning piece, so that students learn how to choose evidence to have original and quality analysis. A lot of that original quality analysis is going to come from guided instruction on how to think about text. There are many, many ways in which we do that before the writing process even begins, but this particular paragraph is foundational. And you can see the little note at the bottom that I believe the department chair and some of the other members of the department came up with as they were working through this presentation together. This particular formula, if you will, is the writing foundation, not only for English language arts, the IB extended essay in English in grade 12, the AP language and composition submissions for those 3 test essays that they do in grade 11, the literature and composition essays that they do in grade 12. But also when you're talking about a student in any history class writing the document-based answer, DBQ, or document-based to the document-based question, or the short, actually the SAQ as well. Can you make a defensible claim? How are you going to pull in some relevant context? And what kind of evidence are you going to use? So that particular skill that we see in grade 7 and 8 is the foundational skill. If we're wondering how these things connect, the foundational skill for all academic writing at the high school level. So this particular formula, if you will, is something that is really, really practiced in grade 9, but then practice with more depth and skill in grade 10, and then practice with more sophistication and insight in grades 11 and 12. And obviously, what do we seek to do? We seek to get students beyond paragraph responses into multi-paragraph responses. So you'll see in the first quarter for writing instruction for grades 9 and 10 in particular, you'll see the first quarter is really going to focus on how can I really perfect that one paragraph and then start writing multi-paragraphs. So the Common Core does break writing down into these 4 main categories. Research is the only one that's not listed there, but that's because the department really believes that we do research in almost everything we do. We do have standalone, I guess you could say, research projects and assignments, but throughout high school, students are working through the creative and narrative essays, argumentative and analytical essays, and informational and explanatory essays. And you'll see some of the terminology that I almost referred to as FRQs when I was talking about AP literature and AP language. And certainly those things, those same skills are in the IB courses as well. So
And social studies.
yeah, exactly. And honestly, one of the biggest, I think, compliments you can have as as an 11th grade high level English language arts teacher, whether it be IB or AP, it's great when we get students that have taken AP US as sophomores, because already you know that they are going to have this sort of like level of stamina. I think that the AP US in grade 10 really just kind of pushes that stamina through, because most of the time those students are going to be taking honors English 10 and then AP US history 10, and it just gives them a huge foundation for what they need in some of those upper level class writings. So we do follow the Common Core, and I think that one of the benefits of that curriculum coordinator role is that they're dedicated to noticing how your 6th to 8th grade team is leveraging the work in the Common Core in writing, and then they can bring that to 9 to 12 and say, hey, this is what I saw at the middle school yesterday, and this is what I'm seeing at the high school today. So these things are happening in both buildings sort of like very significantly, I would argue. It may be separately now without an LA coordinator. However, that dedicated role just to notice and share and to sort of like propel some progress in growth is always really very nice. So I would say that in all grades, no matter what teachers you're having, like this is the focus. One of the most exciting things that I think is a part of our written work is our partnership with UConn, who really brought us into this idea of multimodal work, where a student can craft a written response based on an idea for a writing project that they have, but maybe their response isn't only going to be in the extended essay form. They may have something else, another product that they want to share that represents an idea, and that product might go alongside the typical essay, or they might be creating a podcast instead. There have been some real outstanding pieces of writing that have been in different forms through our partnership with UConn. It's been really good for us to sort of break through the sort of ceiling of the 5-paragraph essay, especially once our students have really achieved a mastery, and then they can go on to do things that are a lot more sophisticated with their writing. And I think that we're seeing that even with the work for our debate team and some of like the excellent things that we're seeing coming out of the journalism class, sort of like once you have mastered the structure and the formulaic parts of writing, then you can start to sort of play around with it and really kind of push the ground a little bit on what you think you really can do. And that's one of the things that we try very hard to do in writing instruction, is give them these foundations so that, you know, having the freedom to sort of like break the rules that Dr. Ackerman is talking about, and really, you're not just a person that studies author's craft, you're a person that creates author's craft. And I think that that's something that we feel very strongly about as a department and as a school. So I know I kind of like skipped around a little bit with the slides, but I really wanted to illustrate how something as simple as CER really does carry from middle to high school. And those more foundational things that we see going on in grades 6, 7, and 8 are really helping us at the high school level. Because when students realize that this is something that they did already and that they're starting to perfect now, I think that work can be a lot more meaningful for them. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have about the slides
I
or
just
about
wanted
high
to-
school English. Sure.
I just wanted to add back up something that you said, and I think that learning all that there is to learn gets you in that place where you know when to break the rules.
Mhm.
And that's so critical to thinking.
Definitely. I think definitely. And one thing that was like really interesting that I just saw today when I was in a classroom is a teacher was going over some literary devices and having the students just review them very, very quickly, because it's things that they would have known from over time. And then he gave them a poem that it was originally in Spanish, and he wanted them to pick out the devices when the poem is in Spanish before he was giving them the poem in English. This is what Dr. Everett would call the naive task, where they had all their devices with them, so they knew what they needed to do. But instead of seeing the poem in English first, he handed them the poem in Spanish, because he really expected the fact that they were going to be able to recognize and see some of this work, even though they weren't exactly sure of the language per se, that they would understand the patterns. And that's 11th grade. And that's like something that we try to do, where we say, okay, well, we're going to give you something that is rather foundational. Words like metaphor, you know, were in this review, but then they were being tasked to sort of recognize how they could see this in something that was completely different. And a lot of them, maybe knew some of the Spanish words, but I guarantee that they weren't fluently reading that poem until they saw it in English. So it was really cool. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I kind of
Other questions
around a lot.
for the
Yeah.
high school group.
Yeah, I have a few. One thing I was wondering about, so here in each grade, I can see you're incorporating different types of writing. Um, to me, and that's different from middle school, and maybe that reflects just like the state of the learner. But this also feels like it gels better with having a student community, a certain portion of it that's moving in and out of the school system. That every year they're getting this variety of research. So it's just a comment. I'm not trying to change anything either level with that. But my question is. This is sort of like the curriculum model roughly. Is that a named curriculum model? When was it adopted?
Sure.
I think
Yeah, we
questions like that.
did a revision in 2018, so we could map the entire curriculum to the Common Core. Prior to that, it was mapped to the K-12 language arts framework, which was the state adopted framework. So what we found was after we adopted the Common Core as a state, took districts some time to sort of like catch up and take all their existing curriculum documents and remap them to the Common Core. One thing that was nice about the Common Core is that it does scaffold us K-12, which is great. So you may have a particular standard in writing that is speaking specifically to sentencing. But then eventually, once you hit maybe grades 10 and 11, they talk about building sentences with independent clauses and dependent clauses, so you have more of a complex sentence. So that in and of itself, I think was really good, because I don't know if the K-12 language arts framework did for us what the Common Core did. So the entire ELA curriculum for grades 9 through 12 was remapped in 2018. So what you see with the links on the presentation, that's from that remap. Since then, we have met periodically to sort of go over sections of the curriculum. And just very recently, I'd say about 2 years ago, at the end of the, this was we were just coming out of the pandemic. We opened up the curriculum one August and had people come in to talk about what it was looking like in practice. After we saw some skill gaps, right? Because of the pandemic. So we opened up the curriculum document and did some updated pacing guides, just to kind of get us through those first few years after the pandemic, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't going too much too soon before students had time to sort of like backfill some of those skills that they may have been missing. So the entire document itself is still very much in practice today, but is probably due for some updating, I would say. Especially, I know in grade 9, we talk a lot about how so many of the texts that they're reading are quite depressing at times, and how we would like more joy in grade 9. That's something that comes up all the time.
Yeah, so that actually leads right into my next question. So the 6th, 7th, 8th grade level, the mention of mentor texts for each one, the mentor texts for high school, just from listening to my kids, like, oh, I remember reading that in high school, and this one, it seems like it's like a stash of 30-year-old books that we're still divvying out. It doesn't seem like there's been much refresh in the mentor text. I'm not questioning the value of books like Night and things like that, but what's the, I can't think of it right now, but it really seems like we've moved a lot. We have a much more diverse, literature now, and to me it seems like just by the fact that those books are still from like 20, 30, 40 years ago, it seems like we missed that catching on to, like, the opportunity to have diversity that reflects the student community and their different experiences and the world experiences too.
we were fortunate enough, over the past, I would say, 5 years, there was a lot of grant money available for books. Each grade level, in grades 9 through 12 has what we call like our choice library. And that's where you're gonna see some of our much newer and more diverse texts. That when we do units that allow for students to read in book groups per se, a lot of those texts are being brought to the table, which is good. But we're still very much committed to the classics as well, which I do think are going to give students a sort of like stamina and discipline they need as readers. So we are trying very hard to mix it up and make sure that we're doing a balanced approach to having students study things that are a bit more canonical with things that are a lot more new.
Yeah, and so it is that canonical thing that I'm pushing back on, because canonical it used to be called the Western canon actually, and these are just part of it. It's canonical just because an authority said this is what we should be reading. It stretches people's thinking by reaching into what could be thought of as antiquated views of the world, rather than stretch people's thinking into what the world is like now. And I love old literature, just love it. However, I see those texts as not bringing kind of the vibrance of A Long Walk to Water, for instance, would give to young readers and young writers. So it's out of step, I think, somewhat in terms of how they would be wanting to express themselves.
Yeah, I would say our current list are definitely offering a bit of both worlds, for sure. They are, yeah. And for each grade level.
Do they have like ninth grade? Is there a text like 10th grade, 11th?
So what we do is each grade maintains a sort of a reading list. And within that reading list, there would be most of the books on that reading list that are going to be considered sort of like discretionary, meaning like teacher choice. But then there would be two, perhaps in each grade level, that we know that every ninth grader would read these two books, or every 10th grader would read these two books. And that's kind of the way we've done it.
Do you know those right now? Or, I mean, I don't need that information now, but.
Sure.
I'm
So right
curious.
now, I think in ninth grade, they are all studying Romeo and Juliet, and they have been working with Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Previous to that, I know that they were working with To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And then in each grade level, you would find, two texts that are kind of like, these are the definites that we know that every freshman is getting.
Right.
And then other than that, we have things that are, I would say, like frequent flyers that we know that most sophomores are reading. And maybe it's Ender's Game, or most sophomores, I know one that used to be taught a lot, but it's not anymore, was like Of Mice and Men. And that was something that a lot of sophomores are reading. I'd say Lord of the Flies is one now.
Yeah.
That most sophomores are studying. But then, you would probably find that with our teachers, like they're bringing in a lot of companion texts with books like Lord of the Flies that are making Lord of the Flies feel not so old and stuffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all written by men, right?
Yes.
So just, that's.
No, we are well aware. And honestly, like there are some great books that we have and that we've taught in the past. We have Beloved by Toni Morrison, which is a real heavy lift
Yeah.
for a lot of students, both in terms of its readability, but also trauma. So there are some books that were purchased a way back that we loved to teach in the past, but now they are so trauma heavy that some that we had to sort of like step away from a little bit when we looked at our audience and what they really wanted. So when I talked about in grade 9, like wanting more books with joy, I wasn't kidding.
Mhm.
We definitely do. We definitely do.
I might have one more. I just have to fish for it though. The personal narrative college essay final draft. This was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They do it right. Like, I'm sure people are very attentive if they're applying to college to that section. I was just wondering if the teachers find that the students find that as a oh my goodness, this is something really long that I have to write all of a sudden. a long personal narrative, or are they already attuned to writing at that length?
I love this question because for so many of our students, getting it at the word count is the hardest. It's one of the shortest papers they write. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful that you think that they think it's very, very long. In fact,
Well, I don't know. I'm asking.
when most of them draft it, because they're only allowed 650 words for the Common App. So when most of them draft it, it's daunting to cut it back, because when you're a senior in high school or a junior turning into a senior, you feel like you have this very important thing to say that's like so high stakes. Many of them start well over 800 words, and then it's the work of the teacher that's kind of mentoring them through that process to cut them back to the 650. So I think that if anything, the thing that makes that particular piece daunting is the fact that to them it's so meaningful. Not personally meaningful, but scary meaningful. Someone else will read this and they'll make a decision about me because they're reading this. And that, I think, is the trick of that college essay piece, is that it's high stakes because they care about it more than anything they've ever had to write in high school.
Perhaps, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I was just conferencing with a student throughout the weekend on in Google about a recent submission, and you could tell it never changes. It's still a very daunting thing for them. Yeah.
And I'll just put a pitch for Amphora, the Fitch High School literary magazine. Reading through that, there's a lot of that's not just writing; it's art as well. Obviously there's a lot of talent at that school.
Right, and I think you saw in the newsletter that they were just recognized again.
Oh, this year I didn't
Yes, they
notice that.
were.
Yeah.
The National Council of Teachers of English gave them another recognition. I think it was the Superior. Yeah.
That's
So we continue to be very proud of Mr. Giovinazzo and all the students that work on the magazine.
Fantastic. I just have really one question. It is like ChatGPT, keeping that in or out of the kids. Are you guys, I mean, I know we could have like a long discussion on that. But are you guys on top of that as far as trying to keep kids away from it where you want them to be away from it and stuff? Or do you find that kids might be abusing it?
I think it's definitely in conversation, and I think that we are definitely finding that students, if they are using it, they're not using it the right way. Because I know that there is a small sort of like a PLC, professional learning community, like a group of teachers that are trying to show the students that the AI could be like a writing partner, like a revision buddy. Like they're trying to impress that upon the students. But oftentimes students are looking at that tool as sort of a quick fix for submission when they're stressed and they need something handed in a timely manner. And that's when we get to issues of academic integrity. And I am seeing, every time I visit a college campus to see one of my own kids, I'm always looking at the Writing Center sort of like message boards to see what they're messaging out about ChatGPT. And I do think that on university campuses, this is very much a conversation still, not, oh, this is how we're all handling it, or it's more of how are we going to handle it, and what does this look like on the other side? So I think that conversation is beginning. I think that conversation is ongoing. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing in the classroom is a lot more attention to when students are creating a piece, having them create it in real time in front of us, so that we can see a paper, whatever that paper might be, a DBQ or a creative piece for Amphora. So we can see it sort of from its beginning into its final product. That I know that my students' paper started out as an idea, and I know that idea because I saw it when they had that aha and they knew that they were going to run with that idea. So the more we make writing present in the classrooms, the more that sort of threat, I guess you could say, starts to kind of peel away. Because really, as an instructor of writing, your job, I think, is to mentor a student away from that process, because it can be a tool as a revision buddy, but it should not be a creation tool. And that's what we're trying to get students away from, is using that as something that's going to create what you're going to submit. And again, the temptation is out there because the access is so immediate. It's work.
Yeah.
It's work, yeah.
All right.
Quick follow-up. The tragic thing about ChatGPT and others sometimes is that their starting point is flawed, and they can't see that, right? Because they're just learning as well. I noticed that at my level as well, or my teaching level. So you mentioned briefly the writing center, and Fitch has a class like that teaches students how to then help other students. I think at least in the high school, but maybe the middle school too.
It's in the
how
high
to
school.
how to write how.
I think they would love to see a model like that extend to the middle school, but it is in the high school right now.
And so that's like maybe like, I don't know, 20 students a year, 10 or so that,
As many as we can get, as many as we can get. It depends upon enrollment.
and then they learn how to help others with writing.
Correct. And that course was also created with our partnership to UConn. We worked with UConn in developing the course, and now I think it was just last year that it became a UConn class as well. So the students get UConn credit for taking it. So
Yeah. And
yeah, it's a great class.
it'll sound like I was fishing because I work for UConn, but I was wondering, I can see how some forms of how the UConn partnership works, obviously with the early college experience and the writing center. Does it take the form also of workshops up there, student teachers, teachers coming down?
Yeah, every
to Fitch?
October, UConn sponsors a Student Writing Center conference.
Yeah.
And we went prior to COVID, a number of us went just to see what it was all about. And that was when the idea to actually create the course for Fitch came about. So we went through the curriculum, writing timeline steps and all that other stuff. And worked with, I think it was Tom Dean at the time, it might still be, and he kind of partnered with us in creating and writing the curriculum for that class. So the partnership to go to UConn Student Writing Center Conference each October is like still on the table, especially because now we actually have our own class. We'd like to see the Writing Center expand into a physical space in the school. Right now, it's a class where students are pushing in to other classes to assist with other classes. But if we had more enrollment and more involvement, we'd like to have a fully functioning and staffed writing center in the school, just like you would see on a college campus. We just need the growth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have any more? All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you all very much.
Yes.
This is very informative. Thank you. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
It's a pleasure after doing all the budget. This is nice to get back to what the essence of
The things that we're
teaching is.
Positive.
I think we're gonna be presenting one more thing today,
Mhm.
and that's on awarding credit at the semester point. So currently, Fitch High School awards credit at the end of the year. So basically, that means that, you know, for the full course of the year, they have 0 credits for that. Let's just say English or that math class. And then in June, once they pass the final and so forth, you get the average of everything and they get either a 0 credit or a full credit. And what we're moving towards is awarding credit, half the credits at the semester point. So for example, if a 9th grade English student were to pass the first semester, they would get rewarded half credit then. And then when they pass the second semester, they would get that full credit. It's 2 halves to make the full. And our reasoning for that, we just have some bullet points here that we're gonna go over. And then we can answer any questions that you have. But the first bullet point is really, you know, we've made this huge push for our kids to take the most rigorous class that they can, challenge themselves as much as they can. But unfortunately, not every kid is successful in that, you know, when you push yourself, and they had at times nowhere to go. So by awarding that half credit at the semester point, it's almost like a semester 2 parachute, where if they took AP English, let's say 11, that would be an opportunity at the semester point. They would earn that credit. Say they didn't get a grade that they really wanted, but they worked their butt off. They get that half credit, and then they could move down to the College English 11 course at that semester point, and then get a half credit of each. The second thing is it allows for flexibility. We have a transient population. So with students moving back and forth and so forth, earning that half credit at the semester point just makes it easier either to place them in another class for semester 2, or if they're leaving us, their transcript will already show the half credit for that first semester. Bullet number 3, creating hope. We have students, as every high school has students, that may have start off very poorly. They may had a Q1 where they score even below a 50%, and they get to a point where there's no opportunity for success. Even if they were to get an A for Q3 and Q4, there's really a point of no return. But by offering semester credits, they could fail for the first half of the year, but then get that fresh start in January when second semester starts, and they could earn a half credit and then only need to make up the half credit from the beginning of the year, if that makes sense. So just creating fresh hope, fresh start, where they have a new opportunity to earn credit for the second semester. And in turn, what that does is in summer school, if they need credit recovery, they don't need to recover a full year of a course anymore. They can just recover either the semester 2 portion or the semester 1 portion that they didn't attain. This in turn makes graduation track more attainable for our students. Whereas if it's all or none, and they get 0 credits for a course, even if they did well for half the time, or something, say they did really well first semester and then something happened in their lives and they ended up getting affected by that in the second semester, they don't have to go back and make up stuff that they really recovered. I think it honestly doesn't make sense if they learn the material, but they're not getting half of credit for the material that they learned and showed that they learned. And hence they're able to be on track to graduate more often. And then really the last one is it cleans up the transcript, especially during the school year. A lot of times we're sending our transcripts out, and colleges, it shows right now a bunch of zeros for that year, which is really confusing to both our students and to our the colleges that they're going to. Whereas if we award that half a credit, it'll show up on that transcript in their senior year, and it'll just make a fresher, cleaner, more official looking transcript than the one we currently have. And that was honestly one of the points that started this conversation. Was last year we were looking at our transcript and trying to clean it up so that it didn't show all these zeros. Because right now it's showing the zeros because we're not awarding that credit till the end of the year. Whereas now in January, they get that half credit. It'll now update as a half credit there, and it won't look as confusing with the zeros on the transcript. And so that's really, the topics that and the reasoning why we want to move to this manner. Other school, I know Stonington definitely, they do this as my sons go to Stonington, and at the semester point, they're getting that half credit for each of their courses, even if it's a full year course.
And if I can add, I know that you looked into Stonington, but I believe a number of
Yeah.
schools around the state, probably more so than not now, follow this model.
Yeah.
Do you have to then like redo the course of the plan of studies, because you've got all these 1 credit and half credit courses? Does everything then become a half credit course? What?
No, it would still be a full credit course. It's when you're attaining that credit. So it's still English 9, still worth a full credit, but you get half credit in the fall and then half credit in the spring to make up for that full credit.
Mhm.
So it would really be the same exact thing. It's just when we're actually placing the credits into their transcript, their course history.
And then, like you mentioned earlier, for students who may have, say, AP English will take, and this is too much, so it gives them an easier opportunity to go on to a different course for that.
Exactly. One of the difficult things right now is if a kid were to switch from AP for the fall and then go down to a college level, like let's say English 11,
Yeah.
AP English 11 in the fall, then they convert down. I honestly don't think it's even fair for that kid, because then on a transcript, it doesn't show that they actually took that AP class for half the year. It just shows college 11 for the full year. And and that their grade for college 11 is getting averaged with an AP level course, which is absolutely unfair.
So that already happens
That
time
happens
to
right
time, but it just doesn't reflect what happened.
Yes. Yep.
To their disadvantage.
Can I give another example, specifically in the social studies department? We encourage our students to take AP government, and many do.
Mhm.
But as you know, many are not successful. So at the semester point, students are able to, if they pass, to get credit, which is equivalent to a civics grade. Civics is a required course to graduate. So then that AP government course at the semester grade becomes their credit, their civics class. And so making it obtainable to graduate.
So presently, right now, if we have a kid that struggles, I just want to reiterate, because it's a great point. I think it's one of our most glaring points is kid takes AP government the fall, they struggle, they don't pass. They end up dropping the AP government class, and now they have to take a civics class to make up that half credit. Whereas if they just persevered, struggled through and even if they got a D, at least they've attained their civics requirement by getting that semester point. They don't have to go back and now take another civics class on top of what they struggled through in that AP Gov class.
Often there are trade-offs. Is there any advantage to having the full year credit that this would, I mean, it seems like you're saying cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
This is the way to go,
I mean,
but they're losing anything.
One benefit might be if a kid really, really does absolutely poorly quarter one, then they might suffer, they might not be able to attain that semester course. Like sometimes you could give them the hope of, all right, quarter one, you got a 20 quarter one. At least you have 3 more quarters it's not going to be as detrimental towards earning that full credit, but
Yeah, just guessing, is that more common at the freshman level coming in?
getting such a low,
Just starting, I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, it probably is, but.
So maybe that one could stay that way. the
But
full
no,
year.
and that still wouldn't help out as many kids as it would help to be, I personally think, semester point, you get a new start or you're really trying to get that kid to do the best they can that quarter one so that they can still have hope for getting in a better place, to getting the half credit. But what it does is it allows the kid to, like we said before, that fresh start, and you can still have an opportunity to earn that half credit, and then you only have to make up the half credit from doing so poorly quarter one.
Does it stress out kids somehow getting twice as many? Maybe they don't even really know.
I think it would create less stress by having that, they know that they
Can get some credit.
can get some credits. It's really, it'll help kids attain some credit throughout, especially we now are requiring 27 credits to graduate. This is an opportunity for them to get those half of credits where they've earned them. Really, that's my biggest push on this is they are, if they do well for a semester, they really have earned half that credit.
Yeah.
So why are we taking that away from them for something that they've already earned?
Yeah, it shouldn't be all or nothing.
Mm.
Now, this instance, we're giving them something, or they're earning something. Yeah.
That was the point that I was going to make is, we're giving a lot of examples here about students at the upper levels who, may be struggling in an AP or an IB class, and then they want to transition to a different level. And I think that's more of the exception than the rule in this case. And, we're certainly with making this move, not advocating for students in our upper or our most challenging classes to take steps down. We want to challenge all of our students. And so I don't believe that's really what the purpose here is. I think it's really to support the fact that there are 27 credits now for graduation. That's a very challenging, I would say, number of credits. The State Department of Ed only requires 25. So, Fitch going above and beyond, you want to make sure that students have every opportunity that they can to work toward that 27 and earn as much as they can, and do so in an efficient way.
And just to backtrack, if you look at bullet number 3, think about that piece right there. I think second semester this year maybe began around January 26th. Imagine being at January 26th as a ninth grader, having given up already. Saying, well, I guess I have to wait till next year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of them do come in a little bit wiggly and a little bit not ready for high school. That happens. It's ninth grade, right? But the idea that you can, at the mid-year mark, say, you know something, you can have a fresh start. That means something to us. You know, let's begin again. Let's go to Falcon Academy. Let's ask for CCL help. And then all of a sudden, that credit, that half credit is attainable. It's a mindset thing for a student that I think we can't underestimate how impactful that could be on January 26th, when you still have half the year to go.
And
It's a big, long stretch.
it also helps teachers with classroom management when those students now have hope and now have an opportunity again versus I'm just gonna fail the course anyways, so I'm not gonna pay attention, I'm not gonna be engaged, and I'm gonna fool around or be a distraction to the rest of the class. Now they have a purpose again. So
And just a quick one. I don't think we got this sheet. Is that correct?
These, no, these were just talking points that Principal Brown gave to me. So I believe even though I sent them to Erica, she didn't include them in your packet because I think she just thought they were talking points rather than than a formal presentation.
And so for our minute's sake, if we just email them, that way we can
Yes.
get it in the,
Yeah.
in the minutes,
Don't
because,
have them.
because I think it's helpful.
You have them though, correct?
From last month. I
Yeah,
think,
from last month.
Yeah. You have any questions?
No.
All right, I have a few. So you answered my other schools thing. I'll just speak from a personal thing that happened is my daughter she's required to get a certain amount of A's. And she got an 89 or something like that. And I said, well, and that's how the first semester averaged out. And I said, well, you're gonna have to get like a 92 now or something, or 91 to average that out for the second half of the year. So the calculated grade now would change though, right? So would you get a B plus? And then if you get an A minus, now all of a sudden your calculated grade would be.
no, I think if it's a full year course, it's still gonna calculate as 10% for each of the exams, 20% for each of the quarters. And that would be the yearly, you still have semester grades, just like right now in the transcript, it shows a semester grade. So you get your
Yeah.
semester 1 grade, your semester 2 grade, and your year-long grade. So that could still average out
So
to.
there's still gonna be a year-long grade. and the
Yes,
credit
it's just
would be
when that
awarded.
credit gets awarded to the student will be at the semester point. If they got a passing grade for semester 1, they'll get the half a credit.
So it's a credit, not.
It has nothing to do
not
with the final grade.
GPA. All right. Well, that's good that we're not getting into that. Yeah. All right, yeah, end of year grade. How about the possibility for kids finishing early because of awarding? Because I know that kids have finished early, especially ones that were through COVID by taking a lot of Apex and things like that. Are we looking at possibility for that happening more?
I don't think it would happen that much more personally, with the reason being, I mean, they're still gonna be required 4 years of English, 4 years of math. So you do have a few kids where, however, they got to that point where they have an opportunity. A lot of times, I feel like some of those kids, I mean, how do they end up with getting those 4 credits that
They-
early?
They'd have
Some
to
double up.
they'd have to complete the year.
Yeah.
So in order to have your 4 years, you're gonna have to, even if you earn a half credit, you're gonna have to finish the remaining portion of like an English class, because that is a state requirement. So there may be some students that are, impacted or benefit in that way. I don't know if you'd say benefit or impacted, but I think it's going to be very few overall.
It would have to still be a situation where Apex or something like
Yeah,
that.
or
was
they
involved.
transition in.
Or yeah, they move from
Yeah.
somewhere
I think
else where they.
Yeah.
With the whole COVID thing, I think there was a lot of Apex getting credits that way. So maybe maybe that's behind us now, that possibility. But I know of kids that did that.
Mhm.
End of your grade. Oh, I can hardly read my writing, so I'm sorry. When are we gonna be introducing this new plan and for who?
I would like to start introducing it next year.
All right.
And my hope would be for grades 9 through 12. As long as there's no logistical things that I'm not thinking of in terms of like the back end with Power School and so forth.
Alright.
My hope would be,
Just do it next year for
Yeah.
everybody. Are there any reasons that kids might feel that it's a disadvantage? Or not that you can think of? I mean, it seems like it's gonna be a great advantage for the kids that are having a tough time. Which is, maybe that's great reason in the first place to do this.
yeah,
Like, is there gonna be any, I mean, I just haven't thought about it that much, so. is there any reason
honestly,
Not be beneficial for students? For some students, I guess.
I mean, the one I explained before, we might have to look into that, like if a kid were to start with like having that opportunity of having 3 full quarters to make up a grade in order to get a passing grade, I guess, I can't really think of any other
All right.
personally.
I can just speak to, the place in which I used to work, did this, had done this for a number of years. I think even predating that, I worked in the district 11 years. They had been doing it the entire time I was there. I can't think of one example, and now there may be one, but I can't think of one example in which a student was negatively impacted by this process or procedure. It always helped students.
And your question in the comment about this is about awarding credits, right? This isn't
Yeah.
as much about like calculating GPA or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going back, yeah, it's almost unfair practicing it the other way, I think. If you earn a half a credit, you should get that half a credit.
I think we have to always remember that, the process of awarding credit and these Carnegie units, that was developed, it's like the 1800s or something. It's such a long ago thing system that was put in place that it's a lot of times, really it's looked at as very antiquated, seat time, when credits are awarded. So I think the fact that the high school is thinking a little bit more creatively about how to support students, and I know that that's very important to this board in particular, as having myself sat through a number of our recent board meetings on the budget, and that was such an emphasis on supporting students that, have a variety of needs. I do feel like this is in alignment with that philosophy or approach.
And just procedurally, my understanding, since this is labeled as an update, I don't think the board would drill down to this level. Like this is in your purview as a school system.
Did a little bit of research on this because I wanted to make sure. And so this is not, because there's no policy associated with this, there's no necessarily something that you need to vote on or that the board needs to vote on. But I felt like when I was speaking with the high school team, it'd be something that would be important for at least this curriculum committee to be aware of and to have some, some ability to talk with the team, kind of understand the thinking and then ask any questions. Because sometimes when people ask questions, it helps us as a group to think a little bit about, oh, we didn't think about this, maybe this possibility or the impact here. But it isn't something that, in my research needs to go for approval because there's no policy associated with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Or anything else? Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this to us because it's nice to know about it. And I trust that you're doing the best thing for our kids. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, yes, moving on, review of the referral tracking sheet.
We get to say one's completed.
What's that?
We get to say one's
I know.
completed because of you all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you guys, I really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Is yours dated December 24th? All right,
Yeah.
yeah, so we had just something updated.
Mhm.
I have a pile of papers and when I saw that, I'm like, did it get mixed up and I'm on the wrong one? Do you guys have any comments for each stuff?
We'll get this one off, right? The first one.
Yeah.
Thank
are
you. Thank you very much.
Are you comfortable that we completed what you were hoping to complete with that, Dr. Ackerman?
Or would you like to keep it on?
I'm never gonna get what I want.
So I'm gonna put a Roman numeral 2.
Say that again?
I'll just put a Roman numeral 2 with a new referral.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna be looking at that curriculum next year, maybe.
Yes. Excuse me. Absolutely, we will be. As you know, Dr. Ackerman, or you probably remember, I, like you, former English language arts teacher, this is something that's very important to me. Many of the points that you brought up regarding or concerns regarding the integrated approach to grammar instruction, for example, concerns me as well,
Mhm.
makes me feel a little certain type of way.
Yeah.
And so that'll be something that hopefully very soon we can look at. I think, as I mentioned, when I started, the big priority just a couple of months ago, big priority was certainly looking at or monitoring the implementation of our new K-5 program. It makes sense that, this is going to be a next step for us. In addition, I certainly have been listening to the comments of a number of the board members regarding math instruction, and that has been a focus for me this last couple of months as well. And so I've been actively working with our math specialists, both at the middle school and the elementary level. And there's more to come on that. So quite a bit of work to do, but I'm excited to take on the challenge and know that we will absolutely make progress.
All right, so, well,
I'm reluctant to take it off because I'm just wondering if we could, I don't know.
I was wondering if we could take this one is review of English language arts curriculum writing 6 through 12, which I feel like we did, but maybe we put on a companion new one about updates to the English language arts curriculum 6 through 12.
Yeah,
That might
yeah,
be.
or if you'd like to focus just in middle school, we could
Oh.
kind of narrow it down to.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe we could do that, add an item I'll let you state exactly how you'd like it to be.
If we did a 6 through 8. Because I'm really, the one I'm really worried about is the 8th grade.
Okay.
And maybe you and I can sit down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know that you saw the document that I gave to Adrian. But you and I maybe could sit down and talk about that.
I look forward to it.
Okay, all right.
So with that,
So let's make it 6 through 8. And then the next time we meet, we can, after you and I talk. Okay,
Yep.
Would
I
that
want
be
to
okay?
emphasize, you'll have to give me like a little bit of time though, in terms of making,
You
making
tell
any
me.
changes. Okay.
Yeah.
and that would that be reading and writing? Because we have a,
no, just writing.
okay,
Actually, just 6 through 8 writing.
okay.
Actually, we could leave it 6 through 8 because you would have to look at, but really it's the 8th grade that needs to be concentrated on. Because that's the one that really gets you.
Would it be possible to post, I know that it's on the tracking sheet and, me being new here, I don't know how often things from the tracking sheet are reviewed, but,
You can see.
yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to bring that forward, but, to maybe postpone, give me about a year so that I can, again, continue to kind of work with the department, see exactly, we got to see a little piece of where they are
Mhm.
with writing,
Right.
but I need to really get into those meetings with the department, really see more about what they're doing reading wise as well. Because they don't teach, some school districts have a reading class and a writing class, their approach is
Mhm.
integrated. And just get a sense of their work and develop a plan for how we're moving forward. So I'd hesitate to keep it on the tracker for something that we're going to do this year when I know, there's only a couple more months left in the school year. And I know I'm going to need more time.
Yes,
Thank you.
and how do you want to do that? So maybe you and I can just sit down.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and because if you have those concerns, I mean, they're legitimate concerns. I see it at the college level.
Mhm.
So
I agree.
Well, let's put it on. Hopefully, we can at least touch on it
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
November. or
let's do
December.
6 to 8
Just
writing.
'cause-
Okay,
Okay.
okay, and that would, writing would include the science of the language. Okay. Is that all right with you and you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't have any that I want to add at this moment, but looking through the list, if the timing is appropriate, I'd like to get the Adrian's one, the reading and writing K through 5, up relatively soon, but also that financial literacy update because of the, it doesn't have to be next meeting, either of those, but those are the ones I see that I'd really like to hit upon within this school year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was gonna bring that up as well, in case I know there's some interest in the board as a whole. Getting some feedback on how things are going with with the transition. And I imagine we're gonna have to bring it to the whole board, because I think people are just generally interested.
Yeah, so that might end up being that way. It would be a committee of the whole for the,
Yeah. So
the K
maybe
through
I'll talk
5.
to Bev and see. Because that I was gonna ask to bring it up here if we don't have enough time to get to it soon with the whole board, was kind of my thought on that.
Yeah. And has there been enough time to have some, I guess we are looking for an update, or
think-
early returns, as
I
it were.
think an update is fair.
Yeah.
Anytime that you bring in a new program, curriculum, research shows that it takes 3 to 5 years to really settle in, have an impact. Now, would I like to see something sooner than 3 to 5 years? Absolutely. I'd like to see something this year.
Yeah.
But it's been since late August, early September, and now it's early March. So in terms of the data, we're seeing some differences in the data in a positive way, but ultimately, it's going to take us a little bit of time. Possibly, we won't see those smarter balance scores for this year until July or so. And what those results will say, I can't tell at this point. It's very, very early.
For me at this early stage, I'd be more very interested in hearing what the teachers think about the transition, and just that experience level help.
And that is really interesting because it varies.
Yeah.
And I try to talk to teachers about it all the time. What do you think about, what do you think about the change in the literacy program, Wit and Wisdom? How is it going for you? And some teachers, have really positive things to say. Some are not as happy with the changes, and some really have mixed, depending upon, they think one part of it is good, but maybe some other things are challenging for students. Ultimately, I know I'm really pleased when I walk into a classroom. Now, again, I have this background of a high school English teacher. So when I walk into a kindergarten class and they're using word terms like exposition,
Mhm.
or students at the elementary level are doing a Socratic seminar, these are things I was used to teaching 10th graders.
Mhm.
So if I see that at the elementary level, it shows me that in terms of the expectations that we have for our students at the youngest levels, those are being set very early, and that the middle and high school students, boy, by the time they come up, they're going to be, what we can expect of them then. It's going to be really amazing stuff, but it's going to take some time to
Yeah.
seep in.
They'll be better in Play-Doh.
Yeah.
If they get that.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. It's successful going that far. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so maybe we could talk
Yeah.
talk to Bev about how that's a
Absolutely.
way to bring that up, because I know it was something that everybody was very concerned about last year. There was a lot of
Mhm.
discussion and stuff, so just some kind of an update.
I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah. And is there anything else that you guys would like to see sooner than later on this list?
That financial literacy because of and I assume that means
Mhm.
mostly the high school level because of the new state requirement. I think it's been, I guess next year might be the first graduating class that would have had it required. I know it's not this
I think
year.
it's the class of 2027.
Okay.
I believe it is.
Okay.
But I know that we have it in place right now at Fitch for our students. And so, I think that's good to have it earlier than later. Some districts are still kind of struggling to get that in place, like who's going to teach it? How are we going to balance all the sections to make sure that, all of our students at the high school level are enrolled in that class? I can double check on the year, but I thought it was 2027.
Maybe
I do know that we have all of our students that are scheduled in it now, and the high school is constantly, that's something that they're aware of. Was recently in with the department chairs and Principal Brown and the rest of the leadership team. They were talking about anticipating scheduling and the students enrolling in selecting their courses. And this was financial literacy was something that came up as a part of that discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And I would believe your numbers over mine, for sure. But, and then through the budget process, they'd come up some questions about, are we adequately staffed? I know we were out ahead because we had the courses already on the books for this, which is very nice.
Yeah, I think, CTE teachers or teachers in this kind of content area, they're difficult to find. There's not many out there. Some of our universities in the area do not produce a lot of teachers with this certification. But from what I understand right now, I don't want to speak, the high school certainly put in for an additional teacher. They feel like that would enhance our offerings and allow maybe smaller class sizes in a financial literacy class, or allow us to have one business teacher dedicated to this, and then another business teacher be able to teach additional courses. But right now, what they have, they're okay with where they are.
So I guess we can talk about getting that one,
Yeah, sure.
between those two. And then the review of program of studies, is that one just supposed to come up every once in a while? Is that the way that, I don't even know. You know why that one's on?
Which one?
Review program of studies for GMS and FHN.
I don't even know what that means.
It's the program of studies is I got it wrong. I was calling it a plan of study, but that's the list of all the courses that are on the books at least. I feel like we sort of, some of these other ones, we sort of chip away at that task, that larger task.
Yeah.
And it's anonymous too.
I know, well, that's what I was wondering. Do we need it? But I feel like it was there as a placeholder, so we just kind of keep up on stuff.
And that next one, development of schedule for curriculum updates in all subjects. It seems like that'll.
I think I remember how that developed or how that emerged. And that is, we were hearing that courses were offered that were like, what on earth? That's where that came from. Just like.
Curriculum updates in all subjects.
Yeah, but there were just so many courses that were just, they appeared to be time fillers. I don't.
Like English or.
No, I wish I could see the list of, but I know that's how it emerged. It was like scratching your head about what is this? That's what that meant.
Maybe that could be combined with a review of a program of studies. We can look at the high school 1 month and the middle school the next. I know that the high school has done a significant amount of work to update their program of studies and also make it a little bit more dynamic, so to speak. I know it's online. Students can, it used to be you got a physical book or a piece of paper and people, go through it. And I think now, the high school has done some work with our communications director to make it a little bit more updated.
I think it was particularly at the middle level.
At the middle
And
level.
I think,
okay.
I think it emerged from, the newly created construction or
Yeah, Project Lead the Way has a lot of interesting course titles.
yeah, and maybe we can just bring back the principal or the assistant principal and just say, because when we heard the courses, it was like, we're gonna look into that. I can't be more specific than that,
Okay.
but I think we should put that back on the
So
roster.
you want to look specifically at the middle school program.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Did that clear things up?
If it did for Anne Marie, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
So,
Yeah.
All right. All right, and these other things we can do. So discussion of honors classes beyond the 10th grade. Do you guys feel like we covered that well enough in January where we can go line through it?
Yeah, so with that, I can't remember what I know we naturally, when you talk about honors classes, you're talking about IB and AP. What was the actual topic in that meeting? I can't
So much
remember.
better.
Yeah.
I think it was honors classes at the upper level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was the absence thereof in ELA, right?
Well, I think it was brought about by the ELA. There was an approval for a course that they wanted to have, which would have been instead of it was an IB honors level class. And then, and then in response, the high school came and did a presentation on why we don't have honors courses beyond the 10th grade.
Yeah, well, that question was up before that 9/16. Yeah, that question has been on the radar for a little while, but probably before that refreshed it, I think I would say that discussion. Yeah, so it would really be, I mean, I think it was mostly for ELA.
Yeah. Yeah, we did have it at least on that. Just looking back, the January 16th meeting, it does say discussion on honors level courses beyond 10th grade. And I remember, yeah, we talked about math and science. I'd say we could call that done right now. And then if it wants to be brought up again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So we'll say that it's completed in January,
Yeah.
whatever that means, January 16th, maybe.
Yes, it's January 16th. Yeah.
Math curriculum. And I have a feeling, oh, that's Bev's referral. We'll have to ask her about what the idea was on that
It
one.
makes sense regardless. It's like at some level. We don't have that much math in here. And of course, it's a place where the school system, half the students struggle.
All right, can we move on? You comfortable on this or future meeting topics?
Yeah, I guess we kind of blended that.
Yeah, we did. We have a future meeting topic out of
Yeah.
that 6 to 8 writing.
Oh, did you want to do that right away or I'd kind of, that is a
Oh, it's
future
just
meeting
on the-
topic.
Yeah, it's on the schedule. I'm just going through the agenda.
But I wouldn't want that to be the next one, our next meeting.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're done with the referral tracking sheet.
Yeah.
Future meeting topics.
Right.
And that
then-
could be anyone.
So what's our next meeting? That's my question. That's what
What
I
are we
want.
doing the next meeting?
Yeah.
I would say financial literacy or K-5 ELA, depending on discussion with Bev.
And maybe, because it could go to Cal.
If the K-5 literacy is going to Cal.
Yeah. Okay.
But either way, I would say that we should get financial literacy. What would that be? It would be by May, no later than May, or would you rather have it sooner than that?
No, that's fine. It's just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll put those as 1 and 2.
yeah.
But we can talk about that too,
Right.
on whether, how quickly you can be ready to talk about it.
Okay.
So,
And those were the electives as I recall.
what's that?
Those were the elective at the middle level. I think that's what we were talking about. We were talking about core. I'm leaping back.
The program of studies
Mhm.
was electives at middle school.
And as I recall, yeah, it wasn't the core courses. So,
All right. All right,
so Anne Marie's gonna take a look at and maybe bring that back to us, the electives. Okay.
Sure.
all right.
And you can put that on for future.
Oh, all right, yes,
Yeah.
we could just put that as
Yeah.
an item of
Yeah.
middle school
electives
electives.
At the middle
school
level,
elective
yeah.
offerings.
I can say one of my kids took one of a course, which I thought when they had, it's like, that's a really odd name for a course that ended up, I think it's maybe Project Lead the Way, but ended up like actually teaching real life skills and was their favorite course, favorite teacher. Just,
Give me strength.
huh?
Give me strength.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything from how to handshake and how to introduce yourself and
I teach that at MLK,
yeah,
so
yeah. So
All right. Um, with that being said, you have something to say?
motion to adjourn.
second.
All right. Eric, all right.